to order. Go ahead and take roll.
Belsley.
Here.
Looney. Here. Hare.
Here.
Lehman. Newman.
Here.
Parrott.
Here.
All right, let's do the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So this evening, we do not have a public hearing or any special reports, but we do welcome any public comments. Okay. Seeing that there are none, we will go ahead and move to the consent agenda, which tonight is the approval of the minutes from the December 3rd, 2018 meeting and approval of the bills.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right, call the vote.
Blunier.
Yes.
Hare.
Yes.
Lehman. Newman.
Yes.
Parrott.
Yes.
Motion passed.
All right. The village president has nothing to go over tonight. Village clerk?
Nothing tonight, right?
Okay, moving on to the village administrator.
I have one item tonight, Your Honor. I would like to present the Morton Fall Tourism Grant recommendations. The Morton Tourism Grant Committee met on December 4th and reviewed the grants that were received. There were two types of grants that the organizations could apply for. A community grant, which is capped at $3,000 and is for events which bring people into town and gain recognition for the community, but do not generate a great deal of overnight stays in the hotels. Overnight grants are capped at $10,000, and these require at least 50 overnight stays, and they provide a greater economic benefit to the community and provide a higher level of non-economic benefits for the community and its visitors. So their recommendations are for the community grants, which again are capped at $3,000. The Fourth Fridays event, which is put on by the Chamber of Commerce. They had requested a grant of $3,000. The committee is recommending a grant of $2,700, and they scored a little lower because of the benefit to the restaurants. The people scoring the grants scored them a little lower for that. 8th grade boys basketball tournament put on by Blessed Sacrament Church applied for $3,000 and was approved for $3,000. The winter concert series put on by the Morton Fine Arts Association. This is the first year they've applied. They applied for a grant for $3,000 and they were approved by or recommended by the committee for $3,000. And then we go into the overnight grants. The Pastors Conference put on by the Rural Home Ministries Association. They applied for $10,000 and they're recommending a $10,000 grant. Civil War Days, which is put on by the Tri-County Living History Association, applied for a $10,000 grant and they recommend a $10,000 grant. And then that same group is going to be putting on a separate event this year called Civil War School Days, and they anticipate, don't remember off the top of my head, I could see it in the grant documents, like 800 some plus school students to be coming. There's an event that used to be held up north that would be a reenactment similar to this that several schools would bring students to for a 2-day event, and that group has decided they no longer want to do it. So this group is taking it over and is inviting those schools plus more to come. They are unsure yet of their, the capacity and how many people will attend. They applied for a $10,000 grant. The committee is recommending a $9,000 grant because the committee is expecting a lower number of hotel stays than what they're anticipating, because the committee sees a bus load of kids coming, spending the day and going back home more so than spending the night. So those are the recommendations coming from the Tourism Grant Committee.
Can I get a motion and then discussion?
So moved. Second. I just was going to ask on the school days portion of the Civil War event, is that over several days, assume, in addition to the weekend event, or do we know?
Let me look. I think, if I remember right, it's Thursday and Friday of that week.
Okay. I assumed it would have to be during the week like
Right.
that, but
It's
So-
the 2nd and 3rd of May, and if I remember right, that's, well, let's look and see when the,
Thursday and Friday.
okay. Yeah,
and the original event's traditionally just Saturday and Sunday,
Right.
right?
So this will be Thursday and Friday during the day. They anticipate overnight 300. The committee thought that was a stretch, but they wanted to support this event because if it does go through, it will be a great thing to have in town. Be great, that's the one thing I've said about that Civil War days. I took my grandchildren and it was, it's like taking a step back into the history books and learning about something that you don't see this day and age, so.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
All right, let's call the vote.
Hare,
Yes.
Newman,
Yes.
Parrot,
Yes.
Belsley,
Yes.
Blunier.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay,
That's all I have tonight, Your Honor.
thank you. All right, moving on to Chief of Police.
I have nothing this evening, Your Honor.
Thank you. All right, Corporation Counsel.
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Thank you. All right, Director of Fire and Emergency Services is not present, so we can move on to the Director of Public Works.
2 items tonight, Your Honor. First in front of you is item A. This is Resolution 16-19. This is a resolution approving intergovernmental cooperation agreement between the County of Tazewell and the Village of Morton regarding digital orthophotography.
Okay, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So yeah, this is a project, our last, so to summarize, this is our aerial photography that we use is critical with our GIS. I was actually just talking to Chief, this is through Tazewell, so, as part of their 911, all that. So this is very critical to what we do. Last one we did with Tazewell, we couldn't even come close to this cost if we did it ourselves, so. I don't know if any of you had any question. I sent an email out. The total cost of the project with a grant from IDOT, hang on here, was total cost without the grant was $221,500. There's a grant from IDOT to Tazewell that brings the cost down to $176,500. Our portion, which is based on the number of parcels, improved parcels, is $13,932. This would not be paid in this fiscal, but would be budgeted and paid in the next fiscal year, so no earlier than May 1 of 19. And then my proposal in the email I sent to you all too was to just separate it by the 4 funds that use it. I thought that was an appropriate way, and we've done something similar in the past. So with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions. I know Trustee Parrott had a few questions. This is just aerial photography. It's not LiDAR or any other data with that.
All right, let's call the vote.
Newman,
Yes.
Parrott,
Yes.
Belsley.
Yes.
Blunier.
Yes.
Hare.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Next item in front of you is item B, ordinance 19-18. This is an ordinance making amendments regarding stormwater improvement grants to Chapter 5, Title 8 of the Morton Municipal Code. Before we get a motion, I'd just like to add, the intent isn't necessarily to get this approved tonight. I know I've talked to Trustee Belsley and some others had some questions. This is something I've been working with Pat on and Trustee Parrott, who's over stormwater. So with that, I think we discussed maybe just doing a first reading. I would like to get input from everybody because I can explain that, some of the questions I have after the reading.
And maybe just to keep us on procedural track, maybe if we did a motion second to table, and then I'll do a first reading of it if the board were so inclined.
Motion to approve?
Tabling it.
Or to table?
Second. And for the first reading, if the board doesn't mind, I'll do an abbreviated reading. I'll read the ordinance proposes to add a new section 8-5-8 to Chapter 5 of Title 8. I'll read the regulatory language it would incorporate. Section 8-5-8, Stormwater Improvement Grant Program. A stormwater improvement grant program is hereby established subject to the rules, terms, and conditions of this section. Subparagraph A, at the discretion of the Superintendent of Public Works, the Village of Morton may from time to time award grants from stormwater utility funds for eligible stormwater improvement projects completed on private property to improve stormwater drainage within the Village of Morton. Subparagraph B, a project shall be an eligible project for this grant program if all of the following criteria is met. A grant application shall be submitted to the Village of Morton on the form and containing such substance as the Superintendent of Public Works may require. The grant applicant shall submit with the grant application plans for the proposed storm drainage improvements prepared under seal of a licensed engineer. The Village of Morton shall review the plans submitted by the applicant. The approval of the plans by the Village of Morton must be obtained before construction is commenced for the project to be eligible for a grant. The grant applicant shall be responsible for demonstrating at the time of the grant application that the applicant has obtained any necessary easements, permissions, or authorities from all landowners upon whose land the proposed drainage improvements will be constructed. Grants shall only be available to storm drainage improvement projects to improve surface water drainage on, over, or across existing residential and commercial properties within the Village of Morton. Grants shall not be available for new residential, industrial, or commercial developments or for ordinary site work or grading performed in conjunction with unrelated land improvements. Paragraph C, the Village of Morton's role shall be expressly limited to reviewing the grant application, reviewing the engineering documents, and any and all associated submittals to verify the sufficiency of the design, verifying that the proposed project is likely to improve stormwater drainage for the affected properties, verifying that the property owner has obtained all necessary consents, easements, and supporting legal documents, and verifying in all other regards compliance with the requirements of this grant program. The Village of Morton shall not be responsible for engineering a solution to a private stormwater drainage issue or for constructing private stormwater drainage improvements under the authority of this grant program. Paragraph D, if a stormwater grant is awarded pursuant to the provisions of this section, the grant shall be paid as reimbursement to the grant applicant after the proposed drainage improvements are completed and upon receiving such verification as may be necessary to confirm completion of the project and to confirm that all involved contractors have been paid. Paragraph E, the amount of the grant shall be limited to the lesser of the reimbursement of 50% of the construction cost or the sum of $10,000 per project. Multiple grant applications may not be submitted for the same project, even though drainage improvements may be constructed for one project across several properties. Finally, paragraph F, the total amount of grants awarded in any fiscal year shall not exceed the amount appropriated by the Village of Morton for the express purpose of funding grants pursuant to this section.
Thank you, Pat.
All right.
So if I could add to that, I'm sure I've talked to some of you about drainage issues. I think I can look at most of you here, and we've had some discussions on drainage issues in town. This one's a struggle for me, just because we want to fix everything if we can. So we get a lot of phone calls on these issues, but we expend a lot of time and effort and just can't get any traction a lot of times. And I think even today we require grading plans now. I think it's a lot easier. That's why we do that. There's a lot of problems from the past. It's too hard to deal with them on the back end, you know. So I could point out where all the issues are today. People have called me. I think Trustee Newman asked me even today the ones that we've dealt with in the last 3 years. Since I've been here in 11, we've had 4. To the tune of we've spent about $12,200. The first one was in Thornridge, which was multiple properties. That was probably what I consider the successful one with multiple parties. The other 3 were a little bit different ones, and I can go into detail if you guys would like, but involved Ironaway, Bull Run Creek and a homeowner, and then Brook Circle we had a little issues, but those were single homeowners. So those were a lot easier to deal with. The multiple homeowners is a difficult one. So I've been going to Pat for quite some time, asking, hey, at some point, can we have this discussion to figure out how we can better serve, you know, these issues, but also be on the same page with you guys. I think it was about 2010, and it was, not to put names, but Trustee Veerling was the one who kind of put this together way back when. I think it was a good plan, a good thought behind it, where it was a minimal amount of money, but to be able to assist with that. But I think I don't consider it successful in the fact that we just can't get there when there's multiple homeowners. And a lot of times it becomes the private issues, they're tough to discuss, but at the end of the day, it starts to turn like it's our problem. And it's really not. These are private issues for a variety of reasons. I don't think the stormwater utility, the intent of that fund is to solve private drainage issues. It was to solve maintenance and future capital expenditures within the public right of way and public facilities. So with that, I'm looking for feedback. I'm looking for help from you guys on how you would like to see it, if we even need to work through a program. So this is what Pat's come up with. I thought it was a good shot at it. Obviously, I've been concerned about working on private property and those issues that could come about when you're not getting easements from property owners, temp easements, and working on their property. So that's why I originally went to Pat. So anyway, I still probably have questions, but I wanted to kind of bring it to you guys and get your thoughts on it, if this is something we want to continue. And if we do continue, we're open to suggestions on how to better improve this process to help the citizens that have these issues.
And if I can supplement Craig's point, one of the other, I had a memo that laid out my concerns. Craig provided a cost figure that probably is a fraction of what the village's actual expenditure has been when you include staff time and the basically surveying and engineering work that's been provided by staff, both on projects with legs and some without, where people have brought a project to us and we haven't been able to implement it because neighbors aren't all on the same page. So, as Craig and I had some discussions floated around, Trustee Parrott as well, about, expenditures for individual projects, even though past expenditure has been out of pocket $12,000 and change, in requiring the homeowners to take care of the engineering and the surveying work and kind of placing the burden on the person whose problem it is. The thought was that we increasing the amount per project to a $10,000 figure as a maximum grant amount might better accommodate, increased costs that the homeowner is going to pay instead of the village paying Jamie and Craig and their staff to do the legwork.
Yeah, so that's kind of the change too, is kind of putting it on them to do a little more of the legwork, and then we're willing to participate. Ironically, tonight we're giving out $10,000 grants, so I think that still might be a good use of this. Just trying to come up with a better way to make it smoother. When there's multiple property owners, it's very difficult. People have different budgets, they have different viewpoints on the situation, so those are tough. And we don't want to spend a ton of effort and energy on that. And we're dealing with two as we speak that we spent a significant amount of time on that just can't see the light, if that makes sense. So we'd like to kind of, even on these two, turn it back over to them. This is what we've got. And you guys, I think we could tell them these would be successful projects, but you guys need to put that forward, and we need to work with us on a plan. We'll approve it, and then we participate in that cost going forward.
So up to this point, what you've done has been pretty much done administratively, no formal procedures.
Yeah, there was no formal, it was just discussed always at budget, always had kind of a line item there, and it was $5,000. Trustee Herman was involved back then. I think she might have been over stormwater at some point too. So really through Herman and Vierling pushing it, it was just always in the budget going forward. It was $5,000. I'll be honest, sometimes we just assume that we're not going to spend anything, so it just keeps floating.
In these few projects that have been completed, the engineering, legwork kind of stuff has been done by the village, but the actual implementation, construction has been done by others.
Yeah, one of them, Austin Engineering, did the plans on the first one. $860 was the cost of that from Austin, working with the homeowners. And then I'm trying to think here, all three of them were, all four were one of two contractors, local contractors that did the work. So that was us, our contacts with those local contractors to kind of, that makes it a lot smoother too.
So it's been pretty limited.
very limited, yeah. And that's where I'm at. I think this is a good time to discuss it. Anytime you have something that you're using that you just feel is unsuccessful to date, it's time to just have a discussion, see if that's something you guys and with staff want to improve. Obviously, some of these would be some that you guys would get emails and calls on too. I do anticipate that going forward with some of these multiple property ones. I think one that we're working on's got 5 and the other one's got up to 8. And don't see eye to eye on a lot of things, you know.
And these are relatively, what should I say, old issues? They're not newly created issues? Recently created, recent subdivision development?
Yeah, I mean, Thornridge, Hyde Park, you know, a lot of flat drainage. I mean, I could probably tell you why all of them are that way. A lot of times when we did subdivisions, we built them up against a field. You're familiar with it, Ken. That was phase 1. There was a lot of information on drainage, but by the time the builders come in and it's flat against the field and the next phase comes, it's like, what do we do, you know? I will say that I think accessory uses over the time, you know, sheds, pools, patios exacerbate the problem. And that's pointed out a lot of times too. Well, hey, you guys didn't look at that. I mean, if it's
Landscaping.
allowed, but obviously with the additional runoff from that, landscaping is a big one. Encroachment, some of those permitted, non-permitted, a lot of that exacerbates the issue, so it's worse today than it was 20 years ago. You know, and then that kind of ties to, you know, a lot of the backyards are got quite a bit paved too now, you know, with a big patio or.
And just to, I know that was the abbreviated reading, does it, when there are multiple properties, is it, if it's one drainage project, but there's 8 property owners, does that make it 80,000? Or is it, it's got it specifically addressed, because that's gonna come up a lot. And how do you define that that's actually one project if there's, you know what I mean? Because you could run into, by definition.
Well, I think that's where
You
you're
know what I
looking
mean?
at budgeting annually. There's only so much money in that,
Right.
but I think we could determine what a project is fairly easy on that.
Okay.
And there's a lot. I mean, a lot of the backyards amongst 4 to 8 properties. Sometimes there's, you know, it's tough to get a 0.5% through grass in a backyard with people. You know, and people put landscaping in and do different things. That's tough. And unfortunately, Morton's flat, and Morton's water doesn't infiltrate very quickly either, due to the clay nature of the soil. So,
Excuse me, go ahead.
No, please.
No, I recognize that really wasn't the intent of the stormwater program, but I really think it's a good tool to have, even if it isn't taken advantage of, or hasn't in the past, I guess. I think it's just a good tool for you to have to try to address some of these issues when they do come along.
yeah. And I appreciate that.
And I like
I'm-
formalizing it this way also, rather than
Exactly.
kinda-
Yeah.
Takes the
Shoot from the hip.
guesswork out of
100%.
it, right? I mean,
And I appreciate that. I would like the tool. I'd like some input so we're all on the same page. But yeah, I would like this tool going forward. But what this is doing, and I hope this would be successful, is putting a little more of that upfront time on, you know, those homeowners or business owners that have the private drainage issue.
I agree. I think separating it out and letting the private issue stay private, but having a tool that we can assist, but letting them do the legwork, and like Ken said, having that tool at our disposal to offer assistance, but not necessarily get in the middle of things, I think is a good thing.
so we've got the project tabled, then we're from that standpoint.
We can do a voice vote on it, but we do need to call a
Okay,
vote on the
all right,
motion.
go ahead and call.
Okay, Newman,
It's about to table.
to table.
Yes.
Parrot,
Yes.
Velsley,
Yes.
Blunier,
Yes.
Hare.
Yes. All right, thank you, Director of Public Works. All right, moving to the planning and zoning.
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Okay, all right, now do any of the trustees have any items that they would like to? Okay.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, there you go, Merry Christmas. Very, very good. All right, like that. Now we do not have any items on the closed session, so we can actually call for adjournment. So someone move for adjournment. Here we go.
So moved.
Second. We can do this with a verbal. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Very good. Sure.